Hi everyone, welcome to video 3.4. In this lesson we are going to be reading chapters 6 and 7 in While the Locust Slept, and we're also going to be talking about the effects of oppression on Peter's life. This is an incredibly important theme that we're going to be talking about as we read the entire book. And so it's really important for us to think about this question: what is oppression and how is it affecting or impacting Peter Raiser? So we've actually seen one of our authors in English 10 already talk about this idea of oppression. This is Lorraine Hansberry. Remember, she is the author of the play A Raisin in the Sun. She's someone I really admire and look up to. She's a Black queer woman, and she was very groundbreaking for her time. She told us it really doesn't matter whether you are talking about the oppressed or the oppressor. An oppressive society will dehumanize and degenerate everyone involved. She also told us, obviously, the most oppressed group of any oppressed group will be its women, who are twice oppressed. So Lorraine Hansberry brings up some really important ideas here. One is that a society with oppression is harmful for everyone, she argues. She's saying that the people that are being oppressed are being harmed because they're being put down and their power is being taken away, but that it is also harmful for the people doing the oppressing because it really removes them from their humanity and from having empathy. She also talks about this idea that people can be oppressed in multiple different ways. They might experience oppression for their race and their gender, or their sexuality and their race and their religion, and that all of our identities can interact in really powerful ways. That's something we're going to keep talking about throughout this video. So you might be wondering, what is oppression? This is probably a word you've heard before, maybe you're really familiar with it, but I wanted to give us a definition so we're all on the same page. This first longer definition comes to us from Courageous Conversations, which is a program that Robbinsdale Schools actually uses to teach us teachers about oppression and how we can give our students more power and more voice. And this official definition says oppression is the systematic subjugation or control of one social group by a more powerful social group for the social, political, and economic benefit of the more powerful social group. If we look at a simplified definition, oppression means the unfair use of power over a group to keep them in a state of disadvantage. So when we think about oppression, it's really important for us to think about systems in our world. Oppression is not just like one individual person being mean or unfair to another individual. It's about the systems we have. Like our education system or our housing system or policing, and how those things can be used to treat one group of people really unfairly and give power to another group of people. One metaphor we can use to think about oppression is a birdcage. So if we look close up at just like one singular wire of the birdcage, it really doesn't seem powerful because the bird could easily fly around that one single wire and be free. But if we back up and we see that all of the wires are working together as a system, we can see that it's trapping the bird inside. So the power comes from the way that all of these wires work together to create a system that's trapping the bird. When we talk about oppression, it's really important for us to also talk about this word intersectionality. Intersectionality is a term that this woman here, Kimberly Crenshaw, came up with. She is a Black feminist scholar. And she said that intersectionality is this idea that we as human beings are kind of like a puzzle. And all the different parts of our identity are puzzle pieces coming together to make us who we are. So we're not just our race, we're not just our gender, we're not just our age. We are all of those things together that create our life experiences and influence how the world treats us. So in order to understand intersectionality, we need to understand that each person has unique puzzle pieces of many different identities. Intersectionality is recognizing that these puzzle pieces are interconnected and they shape people's experiences. Multiple identities can interact to create unique patterns of oppression for each individual person. In order to understand this a little bit more, I wanted to talk to you all about the Barbie movie. So you might have seen this movie over the summer, you probably heard about it. The Barbie movie talks a lot about feminism and how women have experienced oppression in our society. But the Barbie movie has gotten a lot of criticism or critiques for the ways that it maybe ignored intersectionality and just focused on white women's experience of oppression. So white women have historically done this a lot, where we have talked about our own oppression with sexism and experiencing oppression as women, while ignoring the fact that women who aren't white might experience oppression in a different way than white women. Because not only are they experiencing sexism, but they also are experiencing racism. And those two things can work together to create a different experience of oppression. So think about this. In what ways maybe did the Barbie movie ignore intersectionality? And did the movie truly speak for all women, or was it just talking about kind of one group of women's experiences? If we want to think about intersectionality for our character of Peter Raiser, let's think about all the different puzzle pieces to his identity. We know that Peter Raiser is Indigenous or Native American, and so we see that sometimes he is mistreated because of his skin color or his culture. In terms of formal education, we see that Peter is often taken out of school, and he's not given access to a really good education. He also doesn't have much money. As an orphan, he doesn't really have resources in his family. And all of these things, his lack of wealth, his culture, his skin color, his formal education, these are things that are keeping him away from power and pushing him out to the side, and kind of layering together to create oppression in Peter's life. So how is Peter Raiser being marginalized? Marginalized means kind of pushed to the edges and kept away from power in society. Our first example is that Peter is marginalized by his peers, by other students. Think about the ways that boys mistreat him at the state school or at the high school. And he's also marginalized by adults in the book. Remember, we see his science teacher really ignore him and mistreat him because of his cultural background. But Peter is also marginalized by systems. And this is when we want to think about the way that the state school, the orphanage itself, is mistreating him, and keeping him separated from his family, from his culture, not giving him access to wealth or education or things that could gain him more power in society. As we read chapters 6 and 7, I really want you to be aware of the ways that Peter is experiencing oppression throughout the book, the ways he's being marginalized or kind of pushed to the side. And I also want you to focus on some ways that Peter or other characters are standing up against this oppression and fighting back. Because oppression is something that it's not the natural way of being or just the way things are. It's human created systems that take power away from some and give power to others. And because it's a human created system, that means that we as humans can change it and can fight back against it. So pay attention to that as you read chapters 6 and 7, and I hope you enjoy this section of the book.